Hi there once again, and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial. And in this one we're going to be making one of these, which is a barrel combination lock. And if we just play the animation here, you can see how this is going to work. Once the code is there, it's unlocked and we can slide the lock post out. And that's the way this works. So it's quite a simple Expresso expression to actually make this work. Actually, it's not that complicated. There's a fair few nodes, but it's quite straightforward actually. But that's what we're going to be about in this one, and it's pure Expresso. There's nothing else going on here. I mean, I've set this up with a controller in here. We've got a controller here, and we can actually slide the barrel in and out manually. I've animated all of these and of course that as well, and we can just change one of these numbers, and as soon as we do that we can't actually open and close the barrel. So it is set up to work exactly as it would if it were real. That's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. We start by bringing in an end side, and it needs 10 sides. Command drag to copy, and what we'll do is make this one 10 centimeters in its radius and this one 5. Hit O for object and just zoom out a little bit so that we can see what we're about. So we've got the first two elements ready, and that's fine. What we can do is hit C to make both of them editable, and this inner end side, if we go into points mode, we can select these 2 points and hold down the control key and select subdivide, but we'll hit this little icon over on the right hand side, the little cogwheel, and say 3 subdivisions, and now we've got another 2 points. And they're going to be useful to us because the next thing we're going to be bringing in will be a cube. And the cube is going to act as a guide. So we'll bring that in, change its size, and we'll make it 3.1 in all 3 dimensions. And that will be perfectly good for us. And we need to rotate this in its rotation be 72 degrees. If we switch to our right hand view, or rather our front view might be better actually, hit H. So we switch to our front view, which is F4, and we're going to bring this cube to somewhere around here. That should be okay. I mean, you can take it right to the edge if you wish to, but just somewhere about there should be fine. Now, with our inner end side selected, what we need to do now is turn on snapping. We probably don't really need to worry about grid work plane. We will say edge, I think, in there. We'll just leave that for now. Let's see if it works okay for us. It's just zoom in a little bit closer. And we just need to pull these points to the edges of the cube so that they line up nicely. And that's great. The cube we can then get rid of because it's done its job. So we've got our shape ready to accommodate the actual lock post. So that's what we've done there, and it's all ready to go. Moving on from here then, we can select both end sides and connect objects and delete, and then drop them holding down the option key into an extrude. They only need to be 5 in the offset, and that's or the object only needs to be 5 in the offset, I should say, and that's fine. That's created the first part of the actual locking mechanism. Great, so we're well on the way to doing this. We can now think about duplication, and that's going to be our next port of call. But before we do that, we're actually going to make this editable and get rid of all of these because we don't need them. So now we've got it editable, and that's going to be great for us. That's going to work out nicely a little bit later on. We can change the name of this if we wish to, but there's no real need to because we're actually going to be grouping this into a null. So I'll hold down the option key and select a null there just to group that. And this we could just say we can call this B1 for what it is. because it is barrel 1, so that'll do. And then we can think about duplication. So we know that this is 5 units in width. What we need to do is duplicate. We want 3 copies. We do want it in linear mode, so we'll select that. We don't want it in the Y, but we do want it along the Z, and we want to go 6 units. So let's apply that. And now we can see that we've set that up, and we've got a gap between each one, which is fine because that will accommodate the spacers. And that's what we need. And it's set up so that the actual code would have been put in correctly. And that again is useful. That's a useful starting point. Okay then, so the next port of call is to build the spacers. Actually, before I create the spacers, I'm just going to change these. That's B2, B3 and B4. I can drop that into there. For now, we'll leave these as copies. That should be okay for now. So we'll keep those in there. We can just call those barrels. That's fine. Yes, that's all good. Okay, let's think about these spacers. They're going to be made from tubes. So we'll bring a tube in and we will set it up as follows. It needs to be orientated plus Z. Its outer radius needs to be 10, inner radius 8, rotation segments 60 because I want this nice and round, and its height needs to be 1, and it just needs a single height segment. And that's perfectly good. We fillet, well, we can put a fillet on them. Let's put one on. We'll make it 0.2. That should be okay for that. And then what we'll do in our coordinates, we'll move it minus 0.5 just to get it in the correct position. And now we can think about duplication. So in our tools, we can select duplicate. Our copies, we can, well, it actually does need to be 4. That's fine. 4 is fine for our copies. And we don't need to move more than 6. So let's just hit apply. And we've got our spacers in. And it's all looking really great. Fantastic. So that's the next step complete. Moving on from here, we'll need to put a cap on the end, and then we can think about building the actual locking post. I'll bring in a cylinder. Again, it needs to be orientated plus Z. Its radius needs to be 9.5 centimeters and its height 5. 1 height segment and 60 rotation segments. We will put a fillet on it, so in the caps, a fillet, and we'll say 0.5. That should work well for us. And then if we switch to our right hand view, we can move it into position. So let's get a hold of the cylinder, drag it across, and we need it to be level with the end. That should be okay. And what we could do, actually, just thinking about that, we could sort of cheat it in so that we go like that, and that could work okay for us, I think. That looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, I think that works quite well. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll do that. I think we'll leave it like that. Just cheat it in like that. That looks perfectly good to me. Okay, great. So the next step is to make the locking bar. I'll bring in another cylinder. In fact, I can probably just drag this one just to create a copy, and then I'll just bring this over here. It wants to go somewhere there. Let's just go into my right hand view and see where we are. Yeah, and it's just again tucked in on the inside of that. We can get away with that, but I'd prefer it if we went somewhere there. What I'll do, in fact, in the coordinates, I'll make this dead accurate. If I go minus, yeah, 3.5 should be fine. Minus 3.5 should be precise. Okay, that's good. Now in my cylinder, it needs to be 10 this time, because we will be dropping this into a subdivision surface, which will actually make it slightly less in the radius. It will make it about 9.5. Its rotation segments need to be 10, because we don't need it to be as detailed. Height is fine, and in our caps we need 2 segments. The fillet on it is okay, but to be honest, we don't really need it because we're going to be putting this into a subdivision surface and that will round it to a degree anyway. So we'll take that off and leave it as it is. The next thing we need to do is make this one editable. And we need to think in terms of what we're going to be doing. So what we're going to do, if we change the view and we go to our wireframe mode, or lines I should say, we'll go to lines and we'll go to isopalms. It makes life a little bit easier. Okay, in edge mode, or rather I'm going to go polygon mode actually, we can then say UL and select this loop here. That's what we're going to be working with. So again, I'm going to switch to my right hand view. So I need to extrude this out until it reaches the edge of this spacer. So I'll hit D for extrude and we'll offset by 6. I can then hit new transformation, but on this occasion I just simply want to go 1. And that gives us our first part of our locking bar here. It will enable us to extrude this out a little bit later. We'll do another new transform on this. In fact, what I'll do, I only want 1 new transform. It needs to be 5 on this occasion. Let's just go back. Just do another one. New transform. Yep, that's 5 on this occasion. That's good. I just want to get rid of those. That's better. Another new transform, but this time we just want 1. Another new transform, 5. Another one, 1. And another new transform, which again will be 5. And finally, another 1. And now things should be set up, all things being fair. And if we have a quick look at this, let's see what we've got. And we can see that we have set it up. We've got our locking bar ready to go. So the next thing to do is to extrude out the actual pieces that are going to be actually used to lock the mechanism. So let's do some selecting. We need this one, this one, this one, and finally this one. They're the polygons that we need to extrude because we can see that they line up with the spacers. So let's just switch to the front view, so F4, and we can extrude these out, and they want to come to somewhere near the edge here somewhere. Right, so let's do that. So D for extrude, and let's try going, I don't know, just say 7 for now. If it's too much, we can easily change it, or not enough, we can change it. Way too much, so let's go 3. Still a bit too much. 2.5. And that will do nicely. It's not quite to the end. That doesn't matter. It's perfectly adequate for what we need. So there you go. We've done it. We've actually created the locking bar, and we can switch back to our garage shading lines, and we're in isopalm, so that's fine. We'll move the locking bar out of position to here, and now we can do a little bit of work with it. We know that we're going to drop it into a subdivision surface, so I'll hold down my option key and do that, and then we can start manipulating. So we can go into edge mode, switch off isocyline editing, and start to work. So let's see where we are. If we UL and we select this loop and this loop, we can just tighten those up somewhere there. I mean, what we can do, we can tighten them fully, and then we could put a bevel on this if we wish to. We'll tighten this loop up. We can also tighten these. We can just literally select all of these and their opposite sides. We'll select this, 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 and this. Tighten those up. And then we need to do some more tightening through here. So we need to probably select individual loops. We may be able to select the loop there. Let's just see where we are. Just tighten that to there. I mean, if we wanted to, we needn't actually do anything with these. They could be left rounded. They look quite nice rounded. We could just leave them. So we'll think about that maybe afterwards. But we can easily do that if we so wish. Just select that loop. Just do that. I mean, I do think they actually look quite nice rounded. Just tighten those up in there, and that's all looking great. The only thing we need to do now with our selection tool, and we are visible only, which is fine, we can just select these, just hold down shift to select all of these, and then full stop key and tighten those up as well. And that looks really good. I think I could leave that like that. I think that works. I think it looks really good actually. So yeah, I mean, no real need to sort of do any more work with those. I think they look perfectly good. Okay, so the locking bar is actually made. As I say, we can add, if we wish, a bevel deformer on there. If we just hold Option down and get a bevel deformer, drop that onto there, we can actually drop it outside. And where are we? Let's just get the bevel. We don't want 1 centimetre. We could probably go 0.3 or 0.5 if needs be. See what it is. 0.5 is okay. Bit more subdivision maybe. Couple of subdivisions on there I think should work okay for us, but well, we can go 3. Yeah, and I think that's looking good. I think that'll work very well for us. Yeah, I'll go with that. I mean, if needs be, you could just do it on the end here. You could just set up a selection and just do the end, but for what it is, I think that's good, and I think I'll settle for that. So let's just go into our coordinates here and just zero that back out. Let's just get it all set up. It's not in the correct position. Just bring it back until it's just on the edge of there. Let's just go to our right hand view and just set that up where we think it should be, which is going to be -3.5, isn't it? -3.5. And that's exactly where it needs to be. And then the next thing to do is hold down Option and group it into a null and call this lock post. Okay. So all of the parts of our mechanism are now made. So we've got the completed job done. And it all looks very, very good. Moving on from here then, the next thing that we have to do is create a texture for this, and we're going to be using the UV tools for that. So that's our next port of call. I'll open up the barrels and select this extrude and solo. Switch to UV edit because this is what we're going to be working with for the moment. Now let's have a look. If we, well, what we can do I think is probably select all actually and just UV unwrap. Okay, that's got it so far. Let's just zoom out a little bit. If we select this part and just move it out of the way and rectangularize, we can also rotate somewhere there and just re-rectangularize that so that it's nice and straight. So that's sorted out. Select all of these, move it off the canvas and rectangularize, and then it's just a case of moving these two, just selecting them both and just moving them off the canvas as well. Okay, let's see if we can pack. What we'll do, we've got stretch to fit on, we've got preserve orientation. What we'll do, I think, if I just select these and pack those first, that doesn't really work. Just take the stretch to fit off and apply again. Let's see what happens here. Well, that hasn't really worked, has it? So let's undo. The easiest thing to do then is probably to just select all, I think, and just pack from there. We'll say stretch to fit if we need to, just do that. and apply. And we've got it set up quite nicely. That's okay for us, I think. The next thing to do, because after all, I mean, this is only a base colour. What we're interested in is basically this. That's what we're interested in. These are the ones we're going to be working with. So let's set up the paint setup wizard. So we'll go into here, paint setup wizard, open the barrels, open B1. In fact, we'll deselect all. I think we're interested in working with this particular extrude, so we'll switch that one on. And we'll hit next. We won't recalculate UVs because we've already done it. Hit next again, and in here I'm going to just leave everything as it is and just change this to 2048 so that we get a 2K texture. Finish and close. And we're okay, we're set up. What we now need to do then is work with layers. So we've got our material. We can see that at the moment we've got just a background layer in there. We need to add a new layer. And in our layer, we want to draw text. We'll put a 0 in the text field. Now, at the moment, for a start, we need to select a different font. I'll use Futura because that's what I used when I built the original. So Futura, that'll do nicely. And let's just see how big this is. Well, at the moment we can see that it's very, very tiny, so that's nowhere near big enough. So let's make this around 120 and see how big that is. Even that's not really big enough. I think we'll go 150. And let's just see what we get now. Yeah, I would say that's pretty good. If we go into our paint and move layer, we can just bring this in here. Let's just undo that a couple of times. I think what I'll do is just redo that because it didn't seem to do it quite as I wanted to. So draw text. If we just click on there and then we can move that into place. Move layer, and then we'll grab a hold of that and place it somewhere there. I mean, by eye, again, perfectly fine for this. We don't have to be that particular about it. So we've got our 0 in place. It's just a case of rinse and repeat. So another new layer. Once again, we want draw text, but this time we want a 1 in the field. Drop that onto there, and we can see that we've got a bit of an issue. That's not too bad to fix, so we'll just move this into place and then we'll worry about fixing that. Let's just draw this over here. Perhaps move it up a little tiny bit. And that's probably going to work out okay. Right, so what we need to do, in our extrude, we need to go back to our polygon mode, UL, and select this outer group of polygons. And then we simply need to say mirror V and mirror U. And now we should find that we're okay. And we are. We're not too bad at all. So that's good. And we can just simply think about moving the layer again if we need to. I don't know whether we do. We're not too bad. I mean, maybe we can move it over just a little bit. Yeah, I think we'll get away with that. As I say, near enough is good enough, as per usual. Moving on from here then, it really is a case of rinse and repeat. So what I'll do is start creating some more layers with the remaining digits on them. And then by the power of editing, I'll get back to you. So add another new layer. Draw text to just get this moved into place somewhere about there. And add our last layer. Move it into place. Somewhere about there. I think that should do fine. Let's just see what we've got, and we can see that, yeah, all looking good. Okay, so we've got that far. the next thing we can do is in our layers here, if we hold down the control key, we can say flatten layers and make a single texture, and we'll do that next. So that's done and it's ready. We can now switch back to the standard mode. Let's just see where we are. Now let's take the solo off for a start, and that's in place and it looks good. It looks very good. Now I think the easiest thing to do, if we go into our texture here and we drop this onto here, we'll find that we can't really make it work because it's UV mapped and it shouldn't really be done that way. So the best thing to do, I think, rather than play around with the texture, if we just get rid of these extrudes for now, and we'll simply make a copy of this one. We'll just duplicate this, 3 copies, and apply, and that's sorted us out there. And then all we need to do is drop these into the nulls. So this can go here, here, and finally here, and all we need to do is get rid of that, and that's fine. We're set up. So what we'll do next is with our lock post here, I'm just going to make that disappear and we'll see where we are. Now what we need to do next actually is set up the code. Before I do that, in the material, I'm just going to say in the viewport, let's just make that a 2K texture so that we get a nice sharp graphic on there, and that looks really nice. Now let's have a look and see what we've got here. So if we select one of these and we start offsetting the V, we should find that it just rotates all the way around, which is perfect. That's exactly what we needed to do. So we can set an offset to create the position of our code. You know, we can set our code up by using this offset. So what I did when I made the original, I set my first digit to 1, my second digit to 8. Let's see where we are. That was 8. So set it to 10%, and that is accurate. Third digit, I think I used 5. So let's set that one up. 40%, yeah, that's perfectly good. And finally 3. Let's see where we are there. Just get that round there. 60%. There we go. So that's the code encoded into the actual lock. That's great. So moving on from here then, we can think about zeroing this out, and that will be our next step. In order to zero these out, we simply need to rotate them, the extrudes that is, not the nulls that they're grouped into, but the extrudes. These need to be rotated, and they need to rotate at intervals of 36 degrees because of course we've got 10 numbers and we've got 360 degrees in a circle, so intervals of 36 degrees makes perfect sense. So to zero out our first extrude, we simply need to type 36 degrees in here and we get our 0 where we need it. Our next one, we've got an 8, so we need to go through 200 and what is it, 288 degrees? Yep, 288 degrees. That's where we need to go there. Or of course we could use a minus value, but 288 is just as good. That's going to work fine. And we've got a 5. Let's see what we got. I think we've got 180 degrees at this time. Yeah, 180 is the value we need in there. And then finally, let's see where we are here. 108 degrees, I think it might be. Yeah, 108 degrees. So that completes that process and everything is zeroed out. And of course, not that it really matters, but we can see that our lock is indeed locked. So that's fine. That's all ready to go. Moving on from here, the next thing to do is create a controller, and we'll do that with user data so that we can rotate each of these using sliders. I'll bring in a null and rename it controller. So we have that set up. And then let's think about the user data. For a start, I'll add 3 groups. I don't want them grouped like that, that's fine. The data here we can get rid of, and this group here, I just want to pull away from this user data. I'll call this controls. This one I'll call barrels. And this one lock post. Can be lock post as one word, I think that should be okay. Now in my barrels, I need to add data, and I'll call this one barrel 1. The data type will be a float. It will be a float slider interface, a real value in the unit, and a step of 1 divided by 36. So 1 divided by 36 will give us an interval of 1 degree, because we've got 10 numbers, we've got 360 degrees in a circle. So that equates to 1 degree. Our minimum will be 0, our maximum 9, and we can clamp the values because we don't want them going above that. Let's just see if we've got proof of concept. So for now we'll say OK. Can shut that down, actually, we don't need the texture anymore. So we've got this set up here, it's all looking good. Let's bring in another null and call this Expresso. Give it the Expresso tag, and we'll start having a play around in here. For a start, we'll bring in the controller and select barrel 1 from the controls there. We also need a range mapper, so we'll bring one of those in and plumb the output from the controller into the input. Our input range will be user defined, that's fine. Our output range will be degree. The input lower will be 0, the input upper 9. And the output range will be 0 to minus 360. All we need to do now is bring in the null for our first barrel. And this will need to be rotated, so it will be transform, rotation, rotation B. Plumb this into here. And let's see what we've got. Let's just shut this window down. So with our controller, let's just see if we've got proof of concept. And we have. We can see that that rotates perfectly. From 0 right the way through. Back to 0. That's okay. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Okay, that's good. All looking great. Yep, fantastic. So we've got that working. The next thing that we can do is go back into our controller here, go back into our user data, manage user data, and we can literally copy this. So we can just command drag to copy, barrel 2, command drag to copy again, barrel 3, and then one more time for barrel 4. And that gives us all of those. We can then start to think about our lock post. So we'll make that visible again. Now, at the moment, where are we? So our lock post, if we look at our coordinates, it's currently set up at minus 3.5. So our subdivision surface, which of course is what this is what we're actually going to move. We won't move the null, but our subdivision surface is at 0. So we can then move this subdivision surface back, and it will be about minus 25, I think would be okay. So that looks good. So let's go into our controller, back into our user data, and under our lock post we can add data. Call this open stroke close. Again, it will be a float in the data type, an interface of float slider, a real value. I'll say 0.01 in there, and it will be 0 to minus 25. Yeah, I don't think it needs to go any further than that. And once again, we can clamp the value so that we don't go too far. And then hit OK. So we've got that there. And from here on in, it's going to be pure Expresso to get this thing fully functional and working exactly as we need it to. Let's get the Expresso editor open again and we'll start work. So what we need to do, we need another 3 range mappers. So we'll copy those, get those in. Let's just get that back to its proper size, copy that one down there. And then in here, in our controls, we want barrel 2, 3 and 4 for a start. Just open this up and we'll just bring this down here and plumb these in to their range mappers. So we've got that part done. Next thing to do is bring in B2, B3 and B4. And once again, we need to set them up as we did with B1. So at the input stage, transform rotation B. Okay, great. So they're all ready to go. And they can be plumbed in accordingly. Great stuff. Let's just have a quick play. Let's just move these. Yep, that one's working, and that one's working. Brilliant. So they're all doing the jobs that they need to do. That's that particular section of it complete. Moving on from here, we need 4 compare nodes. So we'll bring those in. Just 1, 2. Let's just make our window a little bit bigger. Drag these up to the top. 3 and 4 compares. Now these need to compare, well they do need to be equal to in the function, but we've got to plumb our barrels outputs from the controller into the input ones of all of these. Now our barrel 1 here, we know that the number is 1. For our second barrel, we know that our number is 8. For the third barrel, it's 5. And 3 is our final number. So they're all there and ready to go. The next node is probably the key node, because this is the node that's going to allow the thing to be locked and unlocked, and it will be a bool. So we'll bring a bool in. Its function does need to be AND, but we need to add 2 more inputs. Okay, and we'll set that there and plumb these into the inputs. So what we're saying here is that if all of these outputs are true, then this is true. So if we've got the number 1853, then this will be true at the output. And we can use this to unlock the lock. That's what we're going to be doing. So again, what we need to do here is move on with another compare node actually. So let's copy this one and plumb this in here. And this is perfect because we need the input 2 to be 1, because we need to check to see if this bool is true. So if this compare, or if this bool is true, then this compare will be true. And at this point we can actually unlock. So that's perfectly good. Actually thinking about this, I'm looking at that now and thinking, do I actually need the compare? I probably don't. I think I can do, let's have a look. Yeah, do you know what? We can lose the compare. Forget the compare. It's not necessary. We don't need it at all. We can just use this output, because when this is true, we can use it to do the next stages. So let's get 3. Well, actually, we really only need 1 for now. But we'll get a logic condition and we'll plumb this into the output, or the input, I should say, of this. We'll plumb the output of the bool into the input here, into the switch. And this is going to allow us, and we'll put it up here, it's going to allow us to unlock. So we need to go into our lock post, open and close. And we'll just create some space, move this down. What we're going to do is plumb this in here. So when we can unlock, we allow the slider from the controller here. This slider will be allowed to actually work. But when we're locked, we'll just be switched to here, and our condition will just keep our lock post at its position 0. So it won't be allowed to move. So let's bring in the subdivision surface, give it a position Z at the input stage. Oops, that's a little bit crazy. That's better. Go there. And that's just set up there for us. And now let's see if anything's working. This is the basic expression complete. Let's just see what we've got. So with the controller here, if we move the open and close, at the moment we shouldn't be allowed to do anything, and we don't appear to be able to. Let's have a look, see what we actually, it may not even be working correctly. Let's have a look. Can I just go back into my user data? It might be set up wrong, so let's just go into manage user data, open, close. Yeah, it is. What needs to happen, these two are actually back to front, so let's just put 0 in there, minus 25 in there. Same here, minus 25 and 0. Must do that, otherwise it just doesn't work. So okay, and now it should work. So at the moment we're at minus 25, and you can see it's not doing anything. Nothing's happening, no matter what we do with the open and close. But if we set these up correctly, and what we'll do, rather than just drag them through, we'll just put the numbers in. So 1, 8. And 8 hasn't come up correctly for some reason, which it should have done. I'll have to check that out. 5, even that's not correct either. And 3. No, they're not correct, are they? There's something mathematically not correct here, so let's just double check to see what we're doing. Let's have a look. I think I know what I've done. I think I should have gone 0 to 10 rather than 0 to 9. I think that's probably why that isn't working. I'll just double check that. Let's just bring this up because I think I've done it in all of the range mappers. Yes, I have. Yeah, let's just take that to 10. Let's just, yeah, and they're now aligning. You can see they are. So I've got 1853. That's perfect. Yeah, that was what it was. So make sure that you go from 0 to 10 rather than 0 to 9. Okay, let's just close this down. In the controller, let's see what we've got now. Yeah, we can move that and it will unlock correctly. And if we move this to here, we should find that we can't do anything with this, and we can't. It keeps it locked. So yeah, that's fine. As long as we get the coding correctly now, it all works perfectly. Now to finish it off, this is entirely up to you if you want to do it or not. But what I did was brought in a text and with colour and just added that in. But I'll show you how to do it. You don't have to do it if you don't wish to. But I'll put it in for those that do want to give it a go. So copy these conditions, just a couple more conditions. This one needs to be a string. We can say locked in here and unlocked in the bottom one. So inputs 2 and 3 are sorted out there. And this will need to be set to colour, red and green. So they're ready to go. We can plumb the output from the bool into both of these. And then all I did was get a text spline. So we'll grab hold of one of those. In the object, I gave it a different font. I wanted the font that I usually use for Expresso Mechanic, which is going to be copper plate. Obviously it's way too big. I think I made it about 10. It needs to be in the ZY plane, I think. Let's just bring that up. Yeah, that's fine. Just put it up there above the lock. Set it up middle. That's good for the alignment. And then all I did was drop it into an extrude. Made it something like 5, possibly less than that actually, probably 2, that might do. Caps, give it a little bit of rounding, maybe 0.5. Probably a bit too much, make it 0.2. That's fine, that'll work perfectly well for us. And then all we need to do is work with our text spline. So we'll plumb this into here, object properties, text spline, and straight away you can see that we're unlocked. And then in the extrude here, drag this in, and in its basic tab we need to where are we? Let's just take that away a minute. Let's just bring the extrude up there. That's what I want. Basic tab, I need to say automatic for the color, and bring this in here. Take the output into here, basic properties, color, and we can see that we're now getting what we want. So that's all set up there. If we just move this out of the way, go into our controller, change this, and instantly we're locked. So it's working exactly as I'd made it before. And that's all you really need to do in order to make this work. And of course, everything is animatable. So you can set up an animation as you wish. This can be zeroed out when we first start. And we can record all of these at frame 0. And then you can just set them up accordingly. What I did, I think I did 30 frames. In fact, I gave myself 300 frames overall. So at frame 30 with barrel 1 here, I just set that to 1 and recorded it there. Barrel 2, I probably went to 240, I think, because I did it at intervals of 1 second per digit, and we've got 8 digits to go through there. So I set that to 8 and recorded there. Barrel 3 is 5, so 150, and recorded 5 there. And then finally barrel 4, 90 frames, and set that to 3 and recorded there. So let's see what we get, and we can see that that's going to work. That gives you that part of it, and we're unlocked because that's automated. And then at that stage, when I was unlocked, I got to frame 240. I recorded this here, went through to frame 300, and then recorded at -25. And if we just zoom out a little bit so that we can see everything on the screen, we can run the sequence. And there you go. You can see that it works fine. And I set my animation up as a simple animation rather than a looping animation, but that's what I did. You know, it's entirely up to you as to whether or not you want to do any of this. But if you did want to use it for animations, that's the way I just went about doing it. But there you go. That is how you create a barrel combination lock. And that just about brings us to the end of this tutorial. So, as per usual, I really hope you've enjoyed this one and that you've got a lot out of it and you can use some of these techniques in your own projects. And if you have enjoyed the tutorial, then please give the video a like. And if you haven't already, then please subscribe to the channel. And of course, leave a comment and ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, then please share this video, because all this good stuff really does help keep the channel moving in the right direction. But anyway, let's just have a quick look at the expression. There's your Expresso expression, just for one last look. And as I said, it's quite a straightforward expression really. Yes, there's a fair few nodes involved in it, but it's mostly repetition. And of course the bool is the all-important node there. It's the one that unlocks everything, no pun intended, but it does. But anyway, that just about brings us to the end of this one. So I'll see you very soon on the next tutorial.